Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make this Wirework holly leaf with little berries on, and this is it. So this one I've just turned into a necklace, so it's kind of a pendant hanging from a chain, goes all the way up there. You can obviously make it however long you want to, so just attach the chain here on each point of the leaves there, one on each side, so I can make a nice necklace like this. I've also done one where I've attached a brooch pin to the back because it will make a nice Christmas brooch, I think. I'm going to show you how to do both of them. So obviously the basic holly leaf, but then how to attach either with the chain or the brooch pin. Now I've also used this holly leaf design for other things. I made a decoration, so a Christmas decoration here, where I just used these little holly leaves, the exact same technique that I made them. I just made them quite a bit smaller. So these ones I used some finer materials, obviously, to make them smaller, to then create this Christmas decoration. So if you want to learn how to make these holly leaves, that you can use for whatever you want to really, then stay tuned. So here are the things that we'll need. Now we need two different gauges of wire. They're both regular round wire, and I'm just working with a silver wire here. And the first one is a 1mm. So this is going to be the structure, so the base wire is going to make the shape of the piece. And then this is a 0.4mm, and this is going to be the wrapping wire that we're going to fill in the frame with. And then these are the beads that I'm going to use to represent the berries. These are 8mm rounds, and they're just red dyed quartz in this case. You can also use whatever you want to. So these are the beads and the wire that we're going to make the actual piece with. Now what you want to do with your piece then depends on what you need otherwise. Now what I have here is some chain. So this is what I would use if I were to make a pendant. I would use a chain to then hang it from. And then otherwise you can also say make a brooch, and then we'll need a brooch pin. So it's completely up to you what you want to do with this, but these are the things that you could possibly do if you wanted to. So let's get it together and let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is start building the frame of the piece, so the shapes that we need to fill in as well. And to do that we'll need one length of a 1mm wire here, and this is about 40 centimeters long. So this is going to be to make a decent size that I would say is the pendant size that we're going to be making, or the brooch. So that's going to be the base that we're going to make the shape with. So then to help build the shape, I'm just going to be using a couple of tools. So the first one here is some chain nose pliers, so they have a fine tip to them. It's just to help get the angles in there. And then the other tool that I'm going to be using is my 6-step bell making pliers. I'm just going to be using this over, say, round nose pliers. You can use round nose pliers, but the reason I'm going to be using this is I can make sure to use the same place on these pliers every time. So every time I make my kind of loops and shapes, I make sure that they become the exact same size. So that's why I'm going to prefer to use this. Like I said, you can easily use your round nose pliers if you don't have them. So you then want to get your piece of wire here that we just cut off, and just make sure you don't have any kinks or bends in it. So straighten it out nicely. It's fine if it has a curve, that's not a problem at all. But just make sure you don't have any kinks. Now what we need to do first is kind of roughly find the middle. So just gently put your ends together, and then I can see my middle is down here. You can also measure if you want to, of course, but just roughly the middle, doesn't have to be precise. Then what I'm going to do is take my chain nose pliers and just place them there where I feel the middle is, and just a bit down. I want this to be a little bit wider. Then we're going to bend the two tails upwards against my pliers. So something a bit like this. So they're coming upwards like that, and a little bit out at an angle. This is going to be the very kind of bottom of the leaves and where the berries are going to sit on as well. So the very beginning point. So what we're going to basically be doing now is each tail of our wire is going to work to each their own side, creating their own leaf. That's how we're going to be working with this. So we need to then take, in this case, my 6-step bell making pliers, the round nose pliers if that's what you're using. So from this point now we need to start making those little curves to form the leaf. So I just start on one side first, choose what size. In my case I'm using the third largest or the fourth smallest, the one right here. I'm going to place that then, so that's on the outside of my wire, like that. Start with one side first, bend this tail against, coming back around, so we form this kind of half loop shape. And what I personally like to do is work on both sides at the same time. So everything, when I do something on one side, I'm going to immediately go over to the other side and do the same thing. It's just personal preference. You can do one side fully at a time. That's completely up to you. I just find it's easier going back and forth from side to side, also to get it kind of as even as possible. Obviously, they don't have to be 100% symmetrical, plus that wouldn't really be natural anyway. But just so they roughly become the same size and you can judge the curves and that. So those are the two loops now, coming out from the middle there. And remember, you can always keep adjusting if you need to. Just make sure they're roughly the same size. Going out from that middle point that we used the chain nose pliers to make first. So I'm going to take my chain nose pliers again, and I like using them because they have this fine point to them. What I'm going to do is place them right kind of where that curve ends. So I'm going to decide where I want the point on this curve to be. It's going to be right there. So this is kind of judgment as you go. You want to judge this as you go and make each curve and each point to the leaf. So just place your pliers and then bend your wire against the pliers there. So back on itself almost. Something like this. And then you can obviously sharpen up this angle however much you want to. I wouldn't make it too sharp because we need to be able to get a weaving wire in there as well, so you need to bear that in mind. And remember, I did it on this side, so I'm going to immediately go over to the other side and do the same, so I can roughly get them even. Something a bit like this. Place my pliers and bend the wire against my pliers, pretty much back on itself, all the way up. So now the wires, the tails, instead of pointing downwards, they're now pointing upwards, and they're going to keep swapping over like this. So that's the first curve and point that we've done. And like I said, as you go, just keep adjusting it as you go. It's much easier to make sure that you're happy with each one that you do as you go. And then next one, take the 6-step bail making pliers again, or round nose pliers, place them with the same, roughly the same. If it's round nose pliers, just get them as close as possible. If it's here, you can obviously use this to get exactly the same size. Bend this back around, and then you can see this is kind of, it's got a straight point before you get the curve. That's because you can't actually get your pliers all the way down because of the previous curve. But what you just do is place them as far down as you can get, and then get the curve to begin, and then just roll them downwards. So like that. Gently roll them down a bit at a time until you're happy and they sit just how you want it to sit. So like that. So you have the first curve, the point, and then the next curve as well. Then again, move over to the other side, do the exact same thing. Place your pliers, bend your wire around and against your pliers there, back on itself to get that curve, and then roll it down if you need to, just like this. And you can always open them up and adjust them as you go, but this is the beginning. And then this is the middle point. As you can see, we're building from this kind of little straight middle point that we got, making our curves and our points, working our way outward on both sides at the same time. So you basically just want to keep doing this now, and then obviously this is going to then determine how large and what shape your leaves are going to be. So you want to keep an eye on that as you go as well. You can really make it however big or small you want to. Bend your wire against your pliers so you get that point. Same on the other side to get them as even as possible. So it's just a matter of continuing to do this, working your way outward towards the sides and ending up at the points of the leaves, because obviously the base of the leaf is down here, so you're working one side, building one side of the leaves first, get to a point, and then I'm going to show you when we get to there how we then work our way back down. I've now kept going up the sides here on both sides, working my way up, and I reached the point now where I'm almost where I want the tip to be. So I have one last bend and curve left, until I reach the very tip. So again, place some pliers in. Now what you want to do as well is from the very tip, the middle point down there, you want to kind of gently start also having them a bit of a curve. Now this might and will probably happen a bit naturally due to the curves and the bends you're putting in there, but just make sure that you're getting these nice curves going upwards there from that middle point, because then we obviously need the tips of the leaves, which I'm doing now. So that last curve that you just done, you might need to make a little bit smaller or shorter than the others from where you put the next bend in, to then more naturally be able to reach the tip. Again, place your plier and bend your wire against the pliers there, back in towards the middle, and the other side the same thing. There we go. So we're now reaching the point of the leaves, and again I'm going to just take my 6-step bell making pliers, the same place still, and do my last bend on this side before we're at the tip. So bend it around, just roll it back a little bit like that. So you might be able to see now we've got that gentle curve on this side going up towards the point, and then here I've made it a little bit more come in towards what will be the middle of the leaf, because we also need to then be able to come back down the other side of the leaf as well. Place your pliers, and you just do the other side as well, and just gently roll it back a little bit just to get to that point. And just make sure, like I said, rather correct things as you go if you need to, like that. So that's going to be the last curve on this side of the leaf. So here what I'm going to do is make sure that this is going to be the point, I'm going to place my pliers where the point is going to be, so it's going to fit to also be able to come back down more naturally towards the other side and build up the other side of the leaf. So like this, same on the other side. I find it quicker as well, swapping from side to side, because the whole thing is kind of building up together. Whereas if you do one side first, then when you finish that, you then need to go over and start the other one. But it's completely personal preference, it's just what I prefer to do. So there we go. These are now the points on both sides, those very last ones I just did. So now I need to start working our way back down again. So again, it's just the same principle really. Place your pliers in again with the side you want outward. Just gently bend your wire against your pliers and then put that curve in there. And there you can see it's going to be the tip of the leaf, and we're going to be coming back down the other side. Same over here. So we can get that nice shape in place before we then we're going to start filling it in with the weaving wire. So just get your wires in place until you're happy with how you think it's going to look. So something like this. And then we just continue. Now going down the other side of the leaf. Place your pliers, bend your wire against it to get the next point. Same on the other side. I'm just making these shapes all the way down. Like that. We can slowly start to see it come together now. Starting to make the other side of the leaves here. So just continue all the way down, doing the same thing until you get almost all the way down to that middle point where you basically have made your last little curve, possibly point, depending what you end up with. And then we then also need to bring the two sides together, and then obviously finish off the base wire here. So I've now continued going down both sides here of the leaves until I've ended up with both of my tails coming down towards the middle. So the very last bend that I did, where I know I can't fit any more curves in there because obviously it will push them up too much, I'm comfortable with how this sits. So the very last bend I did from the last curve, I made sure the wires, the tails here, just went straight down, because now what we need to do is finish them off and fasten them in place, because I want my shape here, so this frame that I've just made, to stay in place. To do that, what we need to do is work with one side at a time. So we need to fasten this tail in place. So what I'm going to do is just place it how I'm happy for the leaf to be. Just kind of keep hold of it with my fingers and then start bending this tail down around the back of that original midpoint of the wire where we have that little straight line. I want to bend it around the back of that and then have it come back up through the leaf. That's the same side where the leaf that this tail made. So like this. Try and keep hold of it. It can be a little bit fiddly because obviously it's the same gauge wire. It's a fairly thick gauge. And then I basically want to just wrap this around that straight point, the middle point of the wire that we made to begin with, to fasten it in place, and just leave it there for now towards the back. Same thing with the other side. Keep hold of it where you're happy for it to sit, and then start bending it around the back of the bottom there, the base, to the back side of the leaves, and then have the rest of the tail coming up through that leaf, and then work your way so you're tightening this, making sure that these two straight points now that we're wrapped around it, they stay right close and next to each other. You can always use some pliers and squeeze them together. So we're basically wrapping around that straight middle point of the wire that we had originally started out with, working away from. And also, if you need these wraps to be a bit tighter around the base wire, you can just help squeeze them tighter with your pliers as well. Because this is how they're fastened in place basically. And I want both of them to be coming up to around the back here towards the top like this. Because then we need to finish them off. Before I want to cut anything off though, I just want to make sure they sit nicely and I'm happy with how they sit. So look from the front, and like I said, you can squeeze the two together if you want to. And if you're happy with the shape of them and how they sit, then I'm going to get some cutters. And then on the back side here where you've got the tails coming, I want to cut them off so I have just maybe about 1 millimeter left from it wrapping around another time. So cut that off. I'm going to do the other one as well, like that, because then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers again, and that very end, because right now obviously it's kind of sticking out, so that's going to be in the way if we're making a pendant or something, or a brooch is going to catch on the skin or clothes. So I'm going to take my chain nose or flat nose, go right on that end of the wire, squeeze it down, and then also roll in the direction that the wrap is going, that the wire is going. So basically we're tugging this in, so the very end of the wire is going to be hidden more on the inside there and tucked away. Same with the other side. Work it in and tuck it away. And then you can always run your finger over it to make sure you can't feel it, because then it won't catch on anything either. And then once you've done that, then that's the ends finished off. And this is in the frame that we have, the shape of our holly leaves there. So this is the framework that we've made. We're now ready to start adding in our weaving wire. So we then need to get our weaving wire ready, and what I've cut off is a length of about 4 meters. of the 0.4mm wire. Now that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot to work with, but bear in mind we have a pretty large space here on each side that we have to fill in, because we're filling that in with the weaving wire. But also, we aren't actually going to be working with this full length the whole time, because we're going to start again from the middle point and work with one side at a time. So really the length is going to be cut in half. So then to find the middle of this wire, again I'm just going to put my two ends together here, and then just where up here where I have the loop, then that's about the middle of the wire. It doesn't have to be too precise, but just roughly find the middle here. So that's what we're going to start working from. And then, like previously, this is the middle, work towards one side first. So we're only working with half of the length, like I said. So now we need to get a shape in, the frame that we already made here. And then we need to first attach this. So what I'm going to do is get it down around the middle, in between the two leaves there. And then I'm going to start wrapping a couple of times around this side of the leaf, so that single wire. So what I'm going to do is come up through the leaf and then pull all my wire through here. Now it's still a long length to work with, but just take your time and make sure you don't get any kinks as you're doing that as well. Again, wrap around that wire, the single frame wire that we're wrapping around now, just to attach this to begin with really. Pull all the way through and make sure it's pushed down so it goes as far down in here towards the middle as it will, as you can get it. So the weave that I'm going to be doing to fill in this leaf, or both leaves, is the figure of 8 weave, and that's quite a nice one to fill in shapes in general. But I'm also going to be adjusting it a little bit throughout, because we might need to do different amounts of wraps on each side depending on where we are on the leaf. The basic one I'm going to do is wrap around twice on each side and then go over to the other side. So in this case, what I'm going to do is just go around once more, because you also just want to look and see so you start pretty much equal on both sides there. And also what I want to say, when you pull through, because it's such a long length of wire, the way that I find best is instead of going to the end every time, because first of all that's time consuming, but also you're more likely to get kinks that way. I find it best to kind of make a little gentle loop and push it through the shape, and then just gently pull the whole length through, and there we go. Then we have the whole length through with no kinks. You can obviously still, it can still catch and you can still get some kinks, but that's why just do it slowly and keep an eye on it, then it'll be fine. And if you do get a kink, rather catch it before you then pull it tighter. So now going around twice there, make sure it's pushed all the way down. I'm going to go over to the other side. So now around the outside here, wrap around that, come up through the middle again, pull it all the way through, push it down, and once more. And push it down. So again, I'm coming up through the middle there, middle of the leaf. So we need to go over to the other side again. And basically this is the basic weave that we're going to be doing. Now, like I said, I'm going to do a little bit of variation if I need to, because we have all these shapes on the outside of the framework that we've done. We might need to adjust the amount of wraps we do on the sides here. So the basic one is 2 around each side and then swap over. Now in some cases I might have to go up and do 3, because you can see you might need to separate them a little bit more, otherwise they'll bunch up in the middle. But I'm going to show you that. Do around twice on this side again. And it tends to mostly be down on the bottom here that I need to do that. Wrap around to the other side. So far we're doing alright. With just the 2 wraps on each side. Making sure I push it down every time so my wraps become nice and tight. And so far that's quite simple as well, because we're wrapping around a graduation that goes outward, the frame wires. Now once we start, because we have all these curves, and some of them sometimes are going to go inward, whether it's on both sides together or just one of the sides, that's when we just need to pay a bit more attention. It gets a little bit trickier to wrap when it does that, but it's still manageable. So wrap around that side twice, and come over to the other side, because here now you can see where I just wrapped. From now on I'm going to start going inwards, so I need to make sure that whenever I've wrapped that side, I hold it down and push it down and then go over to the other side, which is still going outward, so that's easy enough. Do that twice again. Over to the other side, and now this is still going inwards, so you just want to be a little bit more aware when you're wrapping there, when your base wire is graduating inwards. Try and push it down while you're wrapping it to make sure it gets nice and tight towards the previous wrap so you don't get gaps, if you can avoid it, where you can see the base wire. And then once you wrapped it, just make an extra push, so you push those wraps nice and tight down, and then go to the other side again. Like this. And again, that one's still going outward, so that's simple enough. Back over here, and we're still doing fine with 2 wraps on each side, so the basic figure of 8. But I'm pretty sure that we're just about to get to a point where I'm going to have to change that a little bit. Other side again. And the way you'll be able to tell that is kind of in the middle, because you have this little indent in the middle going all the way up, where your wires are crossing over from side to side. If that starts getting higher up than the wraps on the side, that's when you know you need to do an extra wrap on the side. As you can see as well, this one is going to end up going kind of straight out instead of keep going upwards. So go up to the side instead. So this is where I might need to add in a few extra wraps if I feel the need. Like that, go to the other side here. And I can tell now, if I kept doing the 2 and 2 on this side, it'll end up bunching up in the middle there, and the middle will start going up further than the sides. So I'm just going to do an extra wrap on here, just to give it a little bit extra spacing in between the places where I swap over from one side to the other. And it's just going to help space it out nicer and not bunch up in the middle there. But then basically you just want to keep doing this. So it's simple enough when you're wrapping a shape that you're filling in. The difference with this one is we have all these little curves and points that we need to take into account. It can make it a little bit trickier to wrap, but as long as you take your time. And also tools can be helpful, because now again, because this is going out more to the side, straight to the side, this weaving wire wants to overlap the previous one. So just put your pliers and just flatten it down. And as you can see there, the wires in the middle that are crossed over from side to side are going up a little bit further than the wraps on the side. So just, like I said, bear that in mind. And then if you see that happening, just do an extra wrap or 2 out on the sides there to accommodate for that. And you're slowly starting to get to the points, the first points as well, which in some cases you might need to adjust the amount of wraps you do as well on each side. So it's all really a matter of judging that as you go. I'm going to do another one on this side actually, and make sure to always push it down so your wraps get nice and tight. And now we're almost at the point of the first point on this side, and sometimes it's just easier just to get the wire up through, and then you can always spend some time just getting it into position after, sitting right where you want it to sit. And there we go, over to the other side. And you can see it start to build up now, but also, like I said, you can see even more. The middle here, if I hadn't done a few extra wraps on some of them, it would have been even further up already. Though it's kind of bunching up in the middle. So that's why, to avoid that, occasionally I do an extra wrap. So I do 3 on one side rather than the 2. So you just want to keep doing this, and you can always use your pliers as well to help squeeze your wraps down and make sure your wires sit in exactly the position that you want them to. Like that. And then on this side, we're now kind of getting to the point where it's going to graduate inwards again because of the shape of the leaf, the base wire there. Again, just get it up, the wire up in between, and then you can adjust this. Push it down where you want it to sit, keep hold of it while you wrap another time. Go over to the other side, and then just make sure that this is pushed all the way down, so that when you wrap to the other side, you've not ended up pulling it so tight that it slides up to there, for example, but you have left yourself enough wire for it to sit in the right place. But you just keep doing this, working your way up towards the tip of the leaf, doing the same thing, judging it as you go, how many wraps you need to do. So I've now kept wrapping all the way up here, and then what I just want to show you is you might end up needing to do certain things as well, especially here towards the top, because where I'm at now is I'm on this side, so it will be due to wrap over to the other side there, but as you can see, between the last wrap on this side and then this kind of straight piece of wire there going, and it's not straight but straight-ish on this side, there's not really much open space to be able to keep wrapping back and forth. So what I'm going to do instead, when I feel like I'm out of space on, say, in a place like that, I'm going to continue just wrapping around that side of the base wire. So just coiling around this basically till I get into this almost little corner where I then have more open space again. And just keep having your wraps be nice and tight. So working my way all the way in, and that keeps that nice framework with the wraps around the outside, because I want to avoid having any bare base wire showing through the weave if I can help it. So that's why I then prefer to then wrap, just make coils around the base wire in a situation like this if I need to. But now I'm in a place where again I have more open space, so I can then start crossing over to the other side again. Just continuing that same wrap, and I'm almost right at the tip. So this last little piece is just continuing the 2 by 2 figure of 8. Going back to the other side again, right until you get to the tip basically, and then you just need to make sure you have a little bit of space left to get the wire through on the tip. So I just want to make sure that it's pushed nice and close together, nice and tight. I'm going to go to the other side again. I still have just a bit of space left, enough for a couple more wraps. Working my way all the way towards the tip there of the leaf. And then again, you can always use your pliers as well to help push your weave together. If you need to, push it down, because it gives you a better look as well. You can see how much space you have left on the tip there, to see if you can do any more wraps crossing over. I think I'm just going to do one last one, and then I'm going to show you how I then finish it off. So through again, make sure to push the wraps nice and tight. So push them down basically. So now I feel like I can't really cross over anymore. I'm right at the tip. So again, what I just want to do is finish off. We need to finish off the weaving wire, but also I want to just cover this last section of the base wire. So I just keep wrapping around this on its own, just working my way from this one side of the tip across to the other side. So just basically cover up the base wire. That's why we need just a little bit of space there, right at the tip, where we can go through this a couple of times. And this also ensures we can easily get rid of our weaving wire, because we're wrapping it around the base wire multiple times. Now it can get a bit tight eventually to get your weaving wire through. So there's going to be a limit to how many times you can get it through here. So like that. And then, let's see what it looks like. Then you can always just push your weave down. And then see if I can get it through one more time. If I can't, then I'll finish it off. I'll just try. Yep, it just came through. So I'm just closing up the gap of my base wire, and then I'm going to go around towards the back with my weaving wire, and then right at the tip there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some flush cutters here, use some wire cutters, and then as it's coming around the back, I'm going to cut it off so I have about 1 millimeter left of the end of the wire there, so you can feel it sticking out. Take my chain nose pliers and just press it down and then roll it inward. So that tip of the weaving wire is going to get tucked away basically within the wrap there, so within the frame. And that way you won't be able to see it because it's going to blend in nicely, but you also can't feel it. So you need to make sure you have no ends of any wire that sticks out or scratches on anything. So this is what it looks like now. So what I just want to say as well is the reason that I work with such a long length of wire in the first place is because I try and make sure to just use one continuous piece of wire when I'm doing something like this, so I don't run out somewhere along the way. Now, worst case scenario, it can be that you run out or you don't feel comfortable working with such a long length, so you want to work with a shorter length. If you just run out, there is a way you can easily add more wire in. It's not a big deal, I just prefer to try and avoid it. But all you would do is just, if you're running out of wire, on one side where you're wrapping around, just finish off the wire there, tuck it in, like I just showed you the exact same way just there, with your chain nose pliers. Attach a new piece of wire with doing a couple of wraps around one of the sides, and then just start up your weave again. So it's not impossible if you run out of wire, or if you prefer to work with a shorter length, you can quite easily do that. But that's the 1/2 now filled in. So back down to the middle where we have the other long length of weaving wire. Now this I'm going to use now to add my berries in, but then also I have to fill out the other half of the leaf. So then to do that, I'm going to take this 0.4mm weaving wire and just get it around the back of my piece, and then make sure it comes down in between the two leaves there, and then you have these little wraps on the bottom with your base wire. I want to go right in the middle of that and just pull it a bit tight so it tucks in between them, so it's not lying on top, and then it's coming up towards the front here, so right in the middle. And then I'm going to get my beads out that I'm going to be using for the berries. So these are the 3 quartz rounds that I'm going to be using, and then I'm just going to take the very end of my 0.4mm wire and start adding these on. And you can obviously use a different amount of berries if you want to, or beads. I'm just going to be using 3 because I think it gives a nice proportion to the piece. So add them to the end and let them drop all the way down to the bottom there. So like that. And then we need to just, I'm going to give it just a little space there before the first bead. And then we need to shape this into a triangle, basically, these 3 beads. So I'm going to have it come up, lying on the top there, and start shaping it so you get this little triangle. Make sure that first bead isn't pushed all the way down, because you just need a little bit of space, a wire there, to be able to, otherwise it'll be sitting all the way down there. We need to be able to just push it up so it sits on top of the leaves there. There we go. And then I'm going to bring this weaving wire back down and just keep hold of it. And then I'm going to keep hold of the beads now, make sure they sit how I want them to sit, and then just twist these 2 sides of the weaving wire together just a couple of times. It's just so they stay in place, basically. Place them where I want them to sit, so something like this. Then this one, I'm going to bring that around the back again, the same way that I went to the front. I'm going to bring it around the back now. And then we just need to fasten this, because obviously this kind of can flop out. So what I'm going to do is again get the end of my wire and then bring this from the back up in between the two leaves. Start on one side. We have these little wire in between the beads that's exposed. I'm going to come up from the bottom in between those two on one side first. Pull your wire all the way through. Make sure you don't get caught on anything else, and it's going to end up sitting nicely. So just double check from the back, because you don't want things to be too obvious or stand out too much. So like that. And then get the end of the wire again, because we now need to fasten it. So for this, it's really a matter of where things are sitting. Just look at yours and see how it looks. I'm going to try and see about coming down through some of the weaving right at the base of the leaf there, just so it's kind of hidden away underneath the beads. The work that I'm doing now, just to secure the beads in place. So you can just kind of flip out the berries a bit to get in there if you need to get space, and pull it all the way through and tighten that, and then just give it a nice tug so that on this side, this fastening that we've just done is holding this side of the berries down through that wire showing in between the berries. So I'm going to come around to the other side. Again, find the end of your wire, because we need to repeat this on the other side there. So again, towards the back, come up from the underside of your berries there and up in between those two, so you capture this piece of bare wire, weaving wire, and just again pull it all the way through. Make sure you avoid kinks as you go. So if I kept pulling this would probably turn into a kink. So I saw it, and then I just undo it before I keep pulling. So pull it gently, like that. Also check the back as you're doing this, so we don't have too much mess going on in the back. Make sure it blends in nicely. And there it's up on this side, and again we just bring it down towards the back again. And you can always use your pliers to help you if you want to adjust anything. Especially chainless pliers, because you can really get in there with the tip. So there we go. Now I'm not going to bother fastening this really, because what I'm going to do is then start going straight into the weaving on this side, so on this leaf that we haven't filled in yet. And I'm just going to basically start, I'm just going to see where I've got the most bare wire showing. So I'm going to come out back down towards the back of it, and then just start going up through the leaf to repeat that figure of 8 weave again that I showed you on the other side. So now the first little section it can be the most fiddly because the berries are a little bit in the way, but you can always flip it to the back and work on the back instead. You would just be going down through then, if you're doing it the same way as me. And again, I'm going to make sure this is pushed all the way down to the base, so we get a nice filled in leaf with the weave. Again, up through or down through, however you're looking at it. And then over to the other side. And then here we're basically starting to fill in this leaf in the exact same way that we did on this side. So you just want to continue doing this all the way to the tip, so you filled in this leaf, and then once you've done that, the actual leaves and berries themselves will be complete. Then it's just a matter of what you want to do with them. So then once you've filled out this leaf as well completely with all your weaving, then here you basically have the finished holly leaf with berries on. And you can obviously use this for whatever you want to. Now what I'm going to show you then just now is how to make it into a pendant, the way that I'm going to do it. After this I'm also just going to show you how to attach a brooch pin to it if you wanted to make it into a brooch. But to make it a pendant, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some jump rings ready here, because I'm going to use jump rings to attach. And what I'm going to be focusing on is the very points of each leaf there. So what I also have is I've got my chain ready. Now obviously you want to decide how long you want it, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to have this hanging in the middle, and then I'll cut my chain in half. So each end of my chain is going to come from each point there, from the leaves, and then you can either obviously If you want to just do a continuous chain, so you put it over your head, you can do that. Make sure it's big enough, or you just have your clasp there in the middle of it. So both sides of the chain are equally long, so the same length. So I take my jump ring here, and then we need to open it up. So this is where as well, I'm going to get this jump ring through the very tips of the leaves. That's why you just want to be aware as you're weaving. You want to make sure you just have enough of a gap in that very tip to be able to get a jump ring through. So you don't want to close it up completely with the weaving. So you might just want to take that into account as you're weaving the very tips of the leaves. Obviously if you don't want to use it for a pendant, you don't have to worry about that. But then just open your jump ring and get it through. The very point there. And then attach your chain, one side of it, onto the jump ring as well, and then just close up the jump ring again. And you just want to make sure the jump ring is closed nice and tight. And then there you have the one side attached. You just want to do the same with the other side as well. So I now attach the chain on both sides here, and this is what it looks like. It's going to hang nicely and always in the middle there because it's attached on both sides, and then you chain all the way up. And obviously it's completely up to you how you want to do it, if you want to use a clasp or not. But then that's how you simply turn it into a pendant. It's going to sit quite nicely on your neckline. So the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is the brooch. So then to make the brooch we need to get a holly leaf out. That's what we already made, we finished it. And then also a brooch pin that you want to use. Then what we're going to do is attach this to the back. Now this one fits just perfectly in size. It's going to sit across the middle like that. And then all we're going to do basically is attach this using some more 0.4mm wire. So I've cut off a short length. It doesn't have to be anything specific really, just enough for you to work with so we can attach the brooch pin. I've got maybe about 40 to 50 centimeters here. But it really depends on the materials that you're using. So what I'm going to do is first just have a look and just place it where I want it to sit so I can get a good idea. And I want to make sure as well from the front that I can't see any of the brooch pin sticking out, like on the sides or on the top there. So it's going to sit roughly like this. So when I turn it around, I know where it's going to be placed so I can't see it, and also obviously so it's going to sit straight. So I know on one side where I'm going to start attaching my brooch pin is right around here. So I'm going to keep that as reference. And then I need to start getting my 0.4mm wire through some of this weaving that we already done. And that's really what we're going to be doing. We're almost going to be sewing on the brooch pin, but making sure we keep it all towards the back. So this can be a little bit fiddly, but it's just a matter of getting through the weaving that you've done, or the sides or whatever's going to fit nicely. What can help as well is make a little hook in the 0.4mm wire there right at the end, so you can get through and it'll more naturally come up on the same side here. So roughly like that, pull it through, and I'm just going to pull it so I have a bit of a tail left so I can use that at the end as well if I want to. But this is where I want to start attaching it. So I'm going to place my brooch pin in, make sure it's sitting where I want it to sit, and then basically I'm just going to be coming through the brooch pin as well, so underneath the needle, but fastening it where that flat bit is. And in this case I've also got some holes in it, so I'm also going to be using those to go through, but that really depends on what brooch pin you've got that you're using. It's just securing this really in whatever way that you think is going to work for yours, so it's going to sit nice and be fastened securely obviously to your piece so it's wearable. So the first bit is going to be a bit fiddly until it gets fastened nicely, but then we have this tail, try and keep that out of the way. Now I've gone through, and it's just a matter of continuing to sew this in. So keep going back to your end of your 0.4mm wire and go through your weave, and it's a matter of working your way across really. You can also, if you need to, go through to the other side. That might be easier, because it kind of naturally wants to push out to the other side. It can be tricky, especially when the brooch pin is there in the way, to continue to get it to come back up. So I'm pushing it all the way through, and then just from the other side, because we want to make sure we don't see any on this side, you can go back through the same place that it's coming out. So make sure you find the exact same place from the front, obviously, and then come out at a different place on the back. That didn't quite work, so I need to go back in. So it's just having a look at what you're doing, really. Going back and forth if you need to. Keep checking. Like that, on the back. It's coming out of the right side now. So pull it all the way through. And then I'm just going to make sure I don't get a kink here on this side. So straighten that out. And then as I'm pulling that through, you should be able to see that that disappears. So now we can't see it on the front there. So as I go back to the back, it's coming back on this side again. So keep having it come kind of underneath the brooch pin and just sewing it in, basically. Go through it again. And then what you can also do is, if at some points it's quite close to some of the edges, like it will be here in the middle, or maybe on the bottom as well, you can go around the edges of your piece. And if you just pull it nice and tight, it's going to blend in with your weave. So you won't really be able to see this extra wire. So just try and get it nice and neat there. As you're attaching it, working your way all the way across. And this is where really all you want to do. Work your way all the way across there, fastening it in wherever you feel that you can. And then all there's left to do, once we've done that and you feel it's nice and secure, we can then finish off the ends. So I'm now done attaching the brooch pin on the back here. And then it's nice and secure. It doesn't move at all, so it's not going to come off, and it's not wobbly or anything. And you can quite easily use it as a brooch. And then that is complete now. Obviously make sure you cut off any ends and tuck them away, just like everywhere else that we have to finish off little ends of wire. So it's the exact same principle. So this is your brooch or your necklace. So this is just two examples of what you can do with this design. So obviously use it for wherever you want to. And also, like I showed you earlier, the actual holly leaf and the berries there, you can use it for anything else you can think of as well. So for decorations, like this one that I showed you, I've made them just smaller. So instead of using 1mm wire and 0.4, I've used 0.8 for the base wire and then 0.4 for the wrapping wire for these small ones. And then just what I did was, when I made these larger ones, I used this one on my bail making pliers, 6-step bail making pliers. So the third largest. For these small ones here, I used the second smallest one. But obviously that's just for using these pliers. But it's just to show you that you can quite easily change them up for whatever you want to use them for. So these are quite small. They're going to be nice for decorations and adding to other things as well. So that's how you make these. Quite a simple design, and you can use them for whatever you want to. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you some really quick and easy earrings to make for Christmas. And it's these little snowmen guys. So this is the earrings. So just some round beads to use in different sizes. And then I put a little hat on them. And then made a little scarf on each of them with some wire. And they're really quick and simple to make. So perfect just for a quick Christmas piece of jewellery if you need to. So if you want to learn how to make them, then keep